Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Have a good Sunday. Hopefully your Sunday's about to get a little bit better. Welcome to the evening edition of Addicted to Gear. Not everybody is a night owl like I am, but at the same time, I enjoy the nighttime vibe. So if you guys are having, a little bit more creativity at night, then this is the show to be on. I love the nighttime vibe because I feel like it just seems to flow a little bit better even in the evenings. It's definitely a different flavor than the morning shows. Usually the Addicted to Gear Sunday show is on Sunday mornings. But we've been flip-flopping it for the last couple of days just because I figured it'd be a good opportunity for people in other parts of the world to tune in that don't normally get a chance to tune in on the Sunday morning shows. So hopefully if you guys don't usually tune in, you'll be tuning in the evening shows, and that's going to be a cool thing. We're going to have an evening vibe here tonight. So welcome to everyone that is already here. A few others I'm sure will trickle in as the notifications go out. The Addicted to Gear show is your ticket to an engaging and enlightening Sunday evening. Basically, consistently, we're trying to anyways, consistently deliver valuable insights into gear, the gear that fuels our enthusiasm, our passion, and we have a couple of pretty interesting topics lined up this evening for you guys tonight, including a couple of new products that that are popped up on my radar, a few guitar maintenance tips, industry news, and some other stuff as well. We sometimes go off on a little bit of a tangent, but that's okay. We eventually come back to music and gear. So welcome to the guys that are already here in the house. We see Music and Gear is here, and Music and Gear is saying every other weekend, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. For the time being, that's sort of what I'm doing. I'm kind of flip-flopping between evenings and mornings. So I know it's a little bit confusing and it throws a few people off, but it gives more people an opportunity to tune into the channel. So this weekend obviously is the evening show. Next weekend it'll be the morning show. So if you can't catch one, hopefully you can catch the other, and it'll give everybody an opportunity. I know some people work on Monday mornings, and Sunday evenings is not easy for them, but I enjoy watching YouTube channels and live streams in the evening just before bed. I have my phone or my iPad and I just tune in, and eventually if I doze off, it's all good. I catch the rest of it as the rerun gets posted, and you can do the same. So nice to see you guys here tonight. We let me just say hello to the guys that are already here. I think Paul was the first one in today. Paul says, without a Sunday morning show for most of the day, I thought it was Saturday. Yeah, you know what? It's weird because I also felt like it was Saturday today for some reason, without the Sunday morning show. But the good news is Paul did have a nap, so hopefully he's going to stay awake throughout the event. Ken is here. He says, good evening, everyone, and good evening, Tony. How are you, Ken? Hopefully you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in. And Music and Gear says he did not get a nap, so maybe he might fall asleep at some point. If I see people dropping off and not participating in the chat, I'll know why, but it's all good. Lee is here from Toronto. Hey, Lee. I like your avatar there, the alien head. There's a lot of alien news going around these days. I don't know if you're an alien buff, following all the news on these APVs and all these weird things that are going on throughout the world. A lot of interesting information coming about, and I'm following that stuff. I like it. It makes my life a little bit more interesting. And I am playing the red Telecaster today. Soon to be joined by another brand new Candy Apple red Telecaster that I'm working on as a new Telecaster build. If you guys are building your own guitars or into building your own guitars, I'll be posting some regular updates on that particular build. I've been working on it. I'm working on it behind the scenes and preparing the videos and all that for you guys and trickling it out. I worked on it today as well. I'll have another video probably. I'll probably post it tomorrow as an update. And I'm really excited by building my own guitars. And Telecasters are fun. I don't know if you guys are into Telecasters or not, but if you don't already have one, it's a good time to get one, man. They're great guitars. Dan is here. Vox Guitars is here. How's it going, Vox? Nice to see you, man. And I like that picture of your dog. I hope it's your. Is it your dog? The looks like it's a German Shepherd there. Dog lover, hopefully. So it's not a new Telecaster, not this one at least. This one's an older one, Cushman. This is a road-worn Telecaster that I bought quite a while ago now, and I love this guitar. It really plays extremely well. One of my favorites. It's road-worn, so you see a little bit of wear. Nothing too extreme, but it's a really comfortable guitar to play. The new guitar I'm referring to is a custom Candy Apple red double bound guitar that I'm building. And if you've been following my channel, you'll see the videos leading up to that build. Mike says, been watching your shows for a while. One of your level and dress videos got me started. Great info. Enjoying the live show. Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate the feedback. I'm glad those how-to type videos, which I call my messy workbench videos, are helping people out there, because I know that not everyone is tackling a guitar build, so to speak. But if you are, I know that when I was learning how to do that stuff, I would constantly scour YouTube trying to find good quality videos explaining the process in detail. And a lot of videos do show parts of it, but don't explain all of it. And I feel like you really need to have all of the details to be able to make sure you don't mess up. And eventually, you know, from doing this over and over, trial and error, I learned the things that work best. And I'm trying to share that knowledge with people that are tackling a guitar build for the first time. So how's it going, Wayne? I see Wayne is here also. Nice to see you. And let's see here. Somebody's saying, I had a close encounter in 2017 at Portner Mountain in Lakeside, Arizona. I was stargazing and appeared directly over my head. It hovered for roughly a minute and then zipped away. You know what's funny? Everybody's got a story, you know? I feel like everybody's got some kind of a story. And with all the stuff that's been going on about this new commission that they're trying to put in place, government commission, and Dave Grush and his information, and a bunch of other people that are so-called whistleblowers, and this whole like UFO APV things that are going on. There's a lot of different types of information out there. There's people that believe it, people that don't, but everybody knows somebody that has had some kind of a unexplainable experience with lights, or you know, something that they've seen. I love that information. It just gives me hope that, you know, there might be something better out there for us. But in the meantime, you know, we're gonna keep talking about, you know, guitars and gear and stuff like that. I got stories too. I can share those stories if you want to hear them. But and no, alcohol was not involved, or drugs. So we'll share that information later. Gene is here. He says, hi peeps, how's it going, Gene? Marcel, how are you, my friend? Doing well, I hope. And Mark Williams is here as well. All right. So let's just get the party started, shall we? And whoever trickles in later tonight. First of all, thank you all for joining us. It's great to see that there are some night owls out there. As I mentioned, the Addicted to Gear show is usually broadcast on Sunday mornings. However, we want to expand the viewership as much as possible and give everyone an opportunity to join in. And so people that are located in different time zones out there can actually join in on the fun. So that's why I'm flip-flopping the time schedules a little bit between Sunday morning and Sunday evenings. Plus, I did have a wedding yesterday. And, I was kind of wiped out at the end of it. And I was going to have a really hard time getting up really early in the morning for the morning show. So I figured, let's do an evening show, continue it that way. Different time slot, different vibe, but the same great information. All right, so I'm hoping that all you guys have had a really productive and fun weekend so far. And this is going to be a good way to end your weekend. Hopefully send you off to La La Land by the end of the show. We're going to try and go for about an hour or so. Sometimes we go a little longer. It depends on how enthusiastic people are and how much information or questions are being asked on the chat. I encourage everyone to ask questions if it's guitar related, gear related, music related, whatever, UFO related, whatever you want to talk about. It's an open microphone for everyone to join in and chit chat here on the channel. If you're new to the channel and you have not subscribed, you need to be subscribed to be able to chat. So please subscribe. Otherwise, you might have issues chatting with us here tonight, all right? If you have a question that is aimed towards me, a couple of question marks before typing out your question will highlight that for me, and I'll be able to zero in on it and answer the questions. Music and Gear says, I had a close encounter with a Gibson Les Paul Access. I was rushed to the ER after seeing the price. Yeah, I can understand that, man. Some of the prices are gonna stop your heart in its tracks. It's getting to the point where, I'm scared to turn over that price tag that you see on the guitars when they're hanging up on the wall there at the guitar shop. Sometimes, you know how they like to flip the price tag so it faces the wall so you don't see it right away. Yeah, and you flip it over and it's like, hold on a second, there seems to be one too many zeros in this price tag. Something's wrong. But yeah, I understand that, man. BC Rich says, Tony, I'm upgrading a classic vibe Squier Strat, and I'm using your Vega Trem videos. Very cool. Great. Should I install the Vega Trem or the electronics and pickguard first? Is it easier to put a Vega Trem first or the pickguard? Well, good question, BC Rich. I'm glad you brought that up. When I installed the Vega Trem, I did that on a Kramer Beretta Special, which doesn't have a pickguard, right? So it wasn't an issue on that particular guitar. You can probably easily tell if the pickguard's going to get in the way. If the holes on the Vega Trem, the little bar that comes with the trem that you have to install first, if that interferes with your pickguard, you can always take off the pickguard. But I don't think it's going to interfere. It's pretty thin, that bar, and it shouldn't. So I'm okay with you installing the pickguard, the Vega Trem first. But when you say or the electronics, does that mean you're upgrading the Squier electronics also, or just the trem? Because I would probably install the electronics first if you're upgrading. I don't know if you're upgrading the pickups on that guitar or if it's just the control pots or what, but I would say it's probably better to install the electronics, and I'll tell you why. Because the Vega Trem needs the string tension to stay in place. Otherwise, it'll pop right out. So if you're trying to install it later on, you might have issues because without the strings holding the Vega trem in place, it won't stay in place. So I say install the electronics first. Do the electronics and then do the Vega trem and then install your strings, and you should be in business at that point. It just makes more sense to do it that way. It makes it easier. Paul, as per usual, has a pedal of the week suggestion. He says only pedals found, a stash of redundant Valaton Loft. Look like Dwarf Boss with new old stock made in Japan parts. The CH10 chorus is literally a Boss CE2 right down to the MN3007 chip, $65 USD. Very cool find indeed, because those Boss CE2 pedals are quite sought after. So if it's a direct replica for $65, that's not a bad deal, especially since it does have the correct chip in it. I'm wondering how it sounds. I used to have one of those CE2 pedals as well, and it sounded great. It was a great pedal. I didn't keep it. I don't know why I didn't keep it. I should have kept it, but I didn't keep it. I don't use chorus all that much. For me, chorus is like not a big element of my pedals. It's not a sound that I feel I absolutely need, but it's nice to have. MFN says, hey Tony, I got my wife Betty to watch. Please say hi. How's it going, Betty? Nice to see that we're getting some female viewers on the channel here as well. I hope you're not being forced to watch, and you'd like to watch. It would be nice to to have some women musicians here. I don't know if you're a musician or not, but hopefully we can keep you entertained for a little while. Marcel, I'm not abused. Like I said, I had a little party, and when the drinks are flowing, the next day you might feel a little rough around the edges, a little furry tongued, as they say, but I'm no worse for the wear, so I'm okay. Gene says, tip of the day, don't buy underwear from online music stores. I would agree with that tip. I would agree with it. You probably will pay too much if you're going to buy it at a music store. Presley's here. Hey, Presley, how's it going, my friend? Nice to see you, buddy. How are things there in California? All good with the guitar builds? Any new projects on your end? Dan's saying hi to Betty as well. So we're all inclusive here. Everybody belongs. We welcome everybody on this channel. So BC Rich says the electronics are upgraded too, mounted on the pick guard. What you said makes sense. Yeah, just take it logically. Whenever I do a build, I just try and work it, I reverse engineer it, so to speak. Kind of like what the government is doing with the alien technology. Just reverse engineer it and say, if I'm going to put this back together again, what should I actually put in first? And to me, because the Vega trem, is really just, it just slips into the bar, and the springs on the bottom side of the Vega trem will try to pull it down, and really the strings are what keeps it in place. It's kind of like a Floyd Rose in that sense. So if you're going to be installing electronics, it's probably best to do that first. Gene says the Crossroads Music Festival is going on now in California, and his friends are sending him updates and pics. Very cool. Who's playing at that event, Gene? Anybody that is worth mentioning? I'm not really following it. I know it's a big festival, but I haven't really checked out who the headliners are for that. Hey, he just got off work. Cool, dude. Nice. And he's got a new gear alert. Um, let's see here. New gear alert. He says he got the 58 quiet coil set from Mojo Tone for his Strat. Very cool. 58 PAF in the bridge and a 58 quiet coil, single coil in the neck and middle. New #1 guitar. Very cool, dude. Thumbs up on that one. I don't know if you've ever tried any of the noiseless pickups before, Mark, or not. To me, they take a little bit of time to get used to it. At least I needed a little bit of time to get used to it. Just give me 1 second, guys. Here. Basically, the difference between the noiseless pickups that I've tried, at least, and again, this goes back a while, so I don't know if the quality has changed. Maybe it has over the years, but I tried a set of Area 51 pickups on a Strat, and they were quite popular. A lot of people were talking about the Area 51s, and they were indeed noiseless. They worked beautifully on removing any kind of hum. They were great if you wanted to really get a quiet guitar going, especially if you want to use that guitar for recording purposes and you really don't want to have any kind of noise issues, especially on a Strat, because the single coils are usually pretty noisy. They worked really well. The only thing is that I felt like I was losing something. Specifically on that set of guitar pickups, it sounded like as if they were, I don't know, I can't explain it. They weren't as lively. It's almost like, along with part of the hum that they got rid of, they also got rid of a little bit of the dynamics that I was used to hearing with regular pickups. So at the end of the day, I didn't keep them. I took them out and I went back to regular Strat pickups. But again, I'm not sure if the pickups you're talking about are built the same way these days. I would have to look at them and see. I know that there's a lot of interesting things that are being done with pickups nowadays, so it might be totally different right now. And I know back in the day, a lot of the people were into the noiseless pickups, especially after Dave Gilmour started using them in his Strat. Everybody wanted to get those great noiseless pickups in their Strats as well. But I think they've come a long way since then. But congratulations, Mark. That's really cool. And it's great to see that you're still upgrading your gear and your guitars, still, chipping away at getting the sound that you're hearing in your head. That's really cool, man. Paul says chorus is a great faux double track on dirt and great for softening the vibe of an acoustic guitar thing when it's more practical to play it on electric. I agree, and that's what I normally use it for, Paul. In my case, I reserve chorus mostly for, when I'm strumming on an electric guitar trying to simulate an acoustic guitar. I like the chorus effect. I like that sound. Of course, if you're playing a lot of Police covers and stuff like that, then, Andy Summers definitely used a lot of chorus effects in his Police tracks that he recorded back in the day, so that comes in handy as well. But you have to get the right sound, because chorus could be a little bit, it's subtle, but you can tell it's there sometimes, and it could be annoying when it's used in the wrong place or at the wrong time, But I like it. I like it for certain things. Gene says Eric Gale's 2 Brazilian guitar players. It's a guitar festival. There's a lot of people. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people enjoying that festival. How many days does it run? I got to check it. I got to look at it. I really don't know anything about it at this point. Marcel says, this is missing a 1 in the price. If this is what they mean to sell, I think they mean to sell a replica. Marcel, I'm not following your comment. I don't know if I missed something earlier on, but I'll try and catch up here as quickly as I can. All right. So, guys, I just want to remind you, if you don't mind, please hit the like or the thumbs up button. It always helps the videos get a little bit more traction on YouTube. If you're not too far from your phone or from your device, I would appreciate that. If ever you want to do a super chat, please feel free. You don't have to, but it's always appreciated. And like I always mention on all of my shows, any super chats will get a sticker, an Addicted to Gear sticker like that. I'll send it to you. You just have to give me your mailing address that you can send me, and I'll be happy to send you out a sticker that you can put on your, on your guitar case, guitar if you want. I'm not a big fan of stickers on guitars, but if you want to, it's your it's your choice. You can put it anywhere you wish. Feel free. Mark says, I've tried noiseless before and they've been hit or miss. The Mojo tones are amazing though. Sounds like an awesome strat other than the bridge. So you're not bonding with the bridge so much, Mark? And Mark just sent me a picture, so I'll take a look at that a little bit later. I don't have the phone that close by here, so I'm just gonna I'll take a look at it after. But thanks for the picture. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, pickups are very, very personal in terms of getting the tone. But why did you decide to go with noiseless pickups, Mark? Are you using this guitar for recording, or is it really for live playing? Were you having issues with unwanted hum? What was the issue there? A lot of people don't want to spend, the reason I'm asking is a lot of people don't want to spend that kind of money. Usually the noiseless pickups are more expensive. They don't necessarily want to spend that kind of money unless there's a specific problem they're trying to resolve. So I'm just wondering if that's the case for you. Music and gear. Well, Paul says, first I'll mention Paul's comment here. He says, noiseless single coils sound like someone threw a blanket over your amp cab. That is the experience I got back in the day, Paul. But again, I haven't tried noiseless pickups since then, so I don't know if it's still the case. Music and Gear says, I love Strats, but my playing style, I hit the volume knob. I have tried 3 times to own Strats. Maybe I should try again and move one of the tone and move the volume to, Paul, listen, excuse me, not Paul, Music and Gear, listen, I understand what you're saying, right? Because you have 3 knobs, the volume and the 2 tone controls on a Strat. You can easily get another pickguard and you have it cut with only 2 holes and just convert it to volume and tone. Like the Sir guitar that I have is made that way. And a lot of other guitars, I think even the Ibanez guitars, some of the models that they have do that as well. And they push the volume and the tone knob a little bit further down and away from your hand. So if you're strumming a lot and you're doing this, and you hit that volume, and I do that too sometimes, it could be bothersome. The other thing you can try also is that you can get a stiffer volume pots. There's some companies that do sell volume pots that are a little bit stiffer. They don't turn as easy. They need a little bit more, a little bit more torque to turn them. And I find that sometimes those are just stiff enough to turn that you don't mess with the volume by accident as much. It depends how aggressive you are, but sometimes those can help as well. There's a lot you can do, but I understand what you're saying. I understand the problem there. Derek Paul says, hey Tony, do you still have that gorgeous 2011 Olympic white road-worn Strat? I keep looking, but I can't find one. I do still have that guitar, yeah. Apart from this road-worn Telecaster, I love that Olympic white road-worn Strat that I have just feels so good. And it's an earlier version, it's an older version. The newer ones are not exactly the same as that one. And I got lucky with that one. I don't know, it just popped up and I grabbed it and it feels so good. And yeah, I'm not gonna sell that one. I really do like it. I like it a lot. Not just the look, but the feel. It feels like worn in, you know. That's the great thing about road worn Strats, at least the one that I have, is that it really does feel worn in. Mike says, I recently got an Ibanez Baritone RGIB 21 28-inch scale, and that led me to try some heavier gauges on my regular guitars. Can you touch on your string gauge preferences a little bit? Yeah, I mean, I'm boring in that sense. I don't venture too far away from the strings that I've been using for a long time. For me, the brand I use most of the time are Ernie Ball. I've tried other brands. I've tried GHS Boomers. I try Diodarios. I think I have a set of acoustic guitar strings here. For acoustic, I'm trying these now. They're medium lights, phosphor bronze. I usually put these on my acoustic guitars, and I usually go a little heavier on my acoustics. These are 12s to 54s on the acoustics. But on my electrics, I usually end up sticking with 9s. And for whatever reason, I haven't really changed that over the years. At one point, I went to 10s. When I was heavily into Stevie Ray Vaughan, I actually went to 12s, which was ridiculous because you can't even bend the strings. And for a short time, I tried the 9.5s, which I feel are pretty nice as well. And I did also buy a set of Reverend Billy Gibbons strings that are, I believe, 8s or 7s. I don't even remember now, which I haven't actually even installed yet because I was thinking about which guitar to put those on just to try them. But I haven't done it yet, and I still have them waiting somewhere. I don't have them here on my desk, or I would show you them, but... And the prices on those strings went up really fast. I don't know why. But generally my go-to is Ernie Ball. I'll usually go, it could be a hybrid Slinky or, one of the Slinky sets, but I usually end up sticking with the 9s as my go-to. They've always worked for me. I like the way they sound. I like the way they feel. So I don't necessarily change too much. But if you guys are open to giving me suggestions, I'd like to know what you guys use. I've tried the coated strings, the elixir strings and whatnot. I didn't really like them. I just felt that they kind of got rubbery really fast. And since I don't really have super sweaty hands or anything like that, for me, corrosion on the strings wasn't that much of an issue. And for the price that I was paying for those coated strings, I didn't feel that they were worth it for me. But I know some people do like them. Presley's working on a purple sparkle hardtail Strat with roasted flame maple neck and black hardware. Very cool, dude. Very nice. So I guess people are still looking for those purple guitars. I know there was a trend there for a while. That's when I built my own purple Telecaster. I think that was started by the guys over at Anderton, specifically Danish Pete with his custom shop purple Telecaster. And then all of a sudden everybody wanted the purple thing. But I guess it's not over yet. I thought it was over, but I guess it's not. Purple guitars are cool. Purple sparkle is cool. I think it's gonna come out really nice, Presley. Send me a picture if you don't mind eventually, or maybe you're gonna show that on your channel. I'm not really sure, but I'd be very interested in checking it out once it's done. And Mark says his pickups, the bridge is a PAF humbucker. And he was using it because he wasn't digging his Strat bridge pickup. So I got the humbucker single coil configuration Wanted noiseless because if I ever get my trio back together, I like gigging with the Strat and use different levels of gain. You know, the HSS configuration is really cool because you do have the ability of choosing between single coil and humbuckers. But I've always felt, at least with my guitars where I have the HSS configuration, it was really hard to get a balanced sound out of it between the humbuckers and the single coils. I always felt like, you know, when you're playing the single coils, they sound good, no problems there. But when you switch from a single to the humbucker, it really changed the sound quite a bit. And I felt like it didn't flow. It was like a little bit too abrupt for me. I had the HSS configuration on my Sir guitar originally, and I took out the pickguard on the Sir, kept the original pickguard with the original pickups, and changed over the entire. I ordered another pickguard and put two two humbuckers in place of the single coils. And I've been playing it like that ever since. Gene says bad volume placement was from when Satan worked at Fender. And Gene says Sheryl Crow and John Mayer playing the festival now. Oh, cool. Hey, is Sheryl Crow still touring? I thought she was kind of like done there for a while. After she broke up with Lance Armstrong, and then I think she had some health issues herself. I thought she kind of went into early retirement there, but I guess she's still doing her thing. Very cool. Good for her. Paul says I have a gate on my single coils. Works great unless outside interference makes your pick up an antenna. I kind of use the noise gate as the solution for noisy environments also. I tend to do that. I prefer to do that than to necessarily change my pickups to noiseless. Again, I don't like to spend that much money on noiseless pickups because I'm not a big fan personally of the ones I've tried, at least. But I'm not saying that the ones that Mark is currently using is not better than what I tried many years ago. But if I need a quiet guitar, I'll usually use a noise gate as well for recording purposes and whatnot. You can pretty much eliminate any of the noise with a noise gate, a good one. Mark says I used to use 12s on my Les Paul in my gigging days. In my 20s, I was an idiot. I guess we were both idiots. Because I did the same thing. I remember trying to bend those strings, those 12s, and it was like so crazy. It was like, oh my god, it was almost like you were shredding your fingers for nothing. You went from 8s to 12s, which is good. I mean, from 12s to 8, which is good. I'm still playing 9s for the moment, but eventually I might even get down to 8s. Who knows? Marcel says, Tony, I just sent you $10 with a super chat charged to my credit card right away. But it didn't appear in live chat, and I got a message that there was an error in the super chat when I pressed buy. Nothing showed up on my end, Marcel. Sorry, maybe I'm getting a little bit tired here. I didn't get it. I didn't see it. Usually it pops up as a message, so it probably didn't work. It probably didn't go through. It could be that there's an issue with the system or whatever. No big worries there. I appreciate it. I appreciate the effort anyways, Marcel. If it works, great. But I didn't see anything on my end. Just so you know. Surfer By says, hey, I just woke up. I know it's 10 a.m. somewhere in the world. It probably is 10 a.m. 10 p.m. is the new 10 a.m., right? Cool Toon says, hello, Tony. Nice to see you, Cool Toons. Nice to see you joining us here. So Dan says Fender equals 9 Ernie Ball. Gibson is 10 for the Dario. So why do you feel like, I know a lot of people say this. I don't feel that though, but I know a lot of people say that they prefer the lighter gauge strings on a Fender and heavier gauge strings on a Gibson. I don't know why that is. I don't feel like there's that much of a difference. Maybe Dan, you can explain to me the theory behind why you choose to go with lighter strings on a Fender. Yes, please do send me your pictures of your relic guitar builds, Surfer By. Love to see them, man. Absolutely. Go right ahead. Cool Tune says, I'm really digging my 90s Gold Top. It's been my go-to guitar lately. My Telecaster's getting jealous. You know what? I'd love to try, which I never tried so far, is putting P90s in a Telecaster. I wonder how that would work. I mean, it's definitely going to give you a different flavor. Something I'd like to try eventually. Because P90s are kind of like single coils anyway, right? So putting P90s in a Telecaster might give you a little bit more of a beefier sound. I haven't tried it, but I like P90s in my, in a Gibson style guitar. Yes, Music and Gear says you can add a cap in the humbucker on the loop when it's in the humbucker mode to bleed some of that to ground. This will even out the sound. I know there's a lot of little tricks that people use to be able to do that when you're dealing with humbuckers and single coils. I'm just not a whiz at electronics, but I know that there's different types of things that you can do with caps. There's also knobs that are built, they have caps built into them for that kind of thing too nowadays. There's a lot of fancy switching solutions out there to do this kind of thing, but I haven't really experimented too much with it. Paul says, Tony, a Telecaster bridge pickup covers the ground. Covers the ground a humbucker does, and if used in a Strat, they work like a hand in a glove. Yeah, I know. A lot of people do claim that also. I feel like a Telecaster is definitely a great in-between guitar between a Strat and a Les Paul. If you like the Les Paul sound and also a little bit of the quack from the Strat, you can... The Telecaster is a very versatile instrument to be able to give you a lot of those sounds. Dan says strings feel the same tension on my fingers between for different scales. Yeah, so I get that's what most people say, Dan. It's related to the scale length of the guitar, right? So having a longer scale length on the Fender as opposed to a shorter scale length on the Gibson. That's really the difference between the different gauges of strings that people use most of the time. I get it, yeah. Mark says P90s and anything will sound good. Generally speaking, I would agree with that. They usually do sound good. I like the more bitey P90s though. I've tried some other P90s that weren't as bitey, and I do like more bite in the P90s. If the P90s are a little bit too mellow, I'm not that into that. But if it has bite, you can really dig into it. I like that. Vox says, my Telecaster's making my Strat jealous right now. To be honest with you, Vox, I haven't actually been playing my Strats all that much. And I love Strats, but I've been gravitating to my Telecasters lately. I don't know why. It's just one of those things. You know, it goes in phases, right? I feel like when you have a lot of guitars, you kind of tend to gravitate towards certain things for a while, and then slowly, you know, switch over to something that you haven't played. Like, I haven't touched my PRS guitars in a long time. I just feel like I'm not missing out. I'm enjoying the Telecasters a lot. Building the new Telecaster as well that I'm working on right now, so I'm happy to be doing that. So I you know, again, I've been playing more my Gibsons more, the Telecasters more, the PRSs not as much. The other guitars, like the the Jacksons that I have, or the Kramers, or the Ert guitars and whatnot, haven't been really getting a lot of love lately. I've been really focusing on these guitars, but that'll change. It doesn't last long. Mark says, I think the Mojo Tone set I got is pretty even. The PF in the bridge is super low output, so it's pretty awesomely matched. In the second position, the bridge auto taps, so you still get that Strat quacks. That's nice. It's nice to be able to have that feature. That's really sweet. And I find a lot of the pickups that are low output, like sometimes you can get some really nice humbuckers that are low output pickups. They tend to compete less with the single coils, so that makes it more even overall. If you have a really hot humbucker with single coils, often you can't compete. The humbucker will overpower the single coils just because it's overwound, and it's going to be louder, it's going to be beefier, and it just doesn't sound like it fits in with the set, But yeah, that's pretty sweet, man. Nice. Good for you, man. Mark says, my Telecaster is my next conquest. Yeah, everybody needs to have a few Telecasters. I'm really digging mine. So there's a lot you can do with Telecasters, let me tell you. Music and Gear says Squire makes a Strat with P90s. Go check it out. I'm less interested in the Strat style body with P90s. I'm a little bit more interested in the Telecaster with the P90s for whatever reason. I've seen G&L. They make a Strat guitar with P90s. Less interested in that. Cool Tune says sold my PRS because I wasn't using it much. Got good money for it, more than I paid, so doesn't miss it. And that's the right approach, dude. If you're not playing it, flip it. Use that money for something else. That's what I do. I love my PRS guitars, even though I don't play them often. When I do play them, I never feel like I should be selling this guitar. I pick up the guitar and I play it. I'm like, damn, this is a good guitar. And I know if I would sell it, I'd regret it, and then eventually probably would have to go out and buy one more expensive than I originally paid. Mine's an older model, which I feel they're pretty good. Those older models are really great. So, I don't want to sell it because I know the prices keep going up, and eventually I'm going to regret it and have to pay more. But I agree with you, man. If you're not playing your guitars, there's a lot of cash invested in some of the instruments. So why not just flip it and use it for something else? Shane, nice to see you drop in, buddy. He says, I'm here for 30 seconds. Gotta get back to work. Forget about work, dude. Come on. Nobody's gonna know. Nobody's gonna know. Just kidding, Shane. I don't want you to get canned or anything like that, dude. I know you're busy. But I appreciate you coming in and saying hello. That's cool, man. Nice of you. Mark says, I'm not a big fan of super high output humbuckers. I used to be, but dig the low output stuff. Me too. And it's kind of hard to find good quality low output stuff. Because at a certain point, it just gets too low. So there's really a sweet spot there, depending on the style of music that you're playing. But if ever you want to check out, there's Sanford Magnetics, who makes really cool pickups in Canada, and he's got some really nice sounding low output pickups. I have a set of the low output pickups on one of my Telecasters. Sounds so good. It really makes a difference. All right. So besides Mark, nobody's been really piping in about any new gear or any new guitars. I mean, it's been you guys have been relatively quiet. So is it because of the the cost of living going up? People are starting to slow down on their purchases. I hope that's not the case. But if it is, I totally understand. A lot of people are, dealing with inflation. Everything keeps going up. So maybe a lot of you guys are just trying to get more mileage out of your existing gear, which is perfectly fine. And that's why I like to build guitars, actually, is because, the cost involved with building a guitar is definitely, at least for me, because there's ways to build guitars on the cheap without ending up with a crappy guitar. There's places you can actually cut and save money where it counts when you're building your own guitar. And at the end of the day, you're not going to necessarily pay as much as some of the more expensive brand name guitars, but you can build yourself a really nice custom guitar according to what you like for a decent amount of money. You can actually save money. So sometimes whenever I feel like, money's tight, but I still have that itch, and yeah, you can go out and buy a custom shop Telecaster or Stratocaster. That would definitely scratch the itch, but it would also leave a hole of about $5,000 to $6,000 in your bank account, which I don't really like to do. So I usually build my own. It makes me pass the time, makes me enjoy the build, makes me learn how to put guitars together properly. And every one that I build, I always feel like I'm getting a little bit better and a little bit closer to doing a really good job. And they tend to sound better as I go. So the one I'm building now, the double bound candy apple red custom Telecaster I'm working on, is going to be one of those projects, and I've already started it, and I've been trickling out videos on that, so you should be able to see a few more. I was actually working on it today, and it's coming along really nicely. I have to say, I'm really. It gets to a certain point in a build where you're starting to put stuff together that you really can't wait to actually hear it and play it. And I got a really nice set of pickups for it as well, which I'm putting in and can't wait to try as well. So I'll be sharing all that with you guys. Gene says the Squier Paranormal Stratosonic electric guitar P90s looks you. There's a little bit of that when it comes to what we're used to or accustomed to when it comes to P90s. Like, I think P90s are not the sexiest looking pickups. Let's be honest. Like the actual look, the visual appeal of P90 pickups is not the sexiest thing. They look like soap bars sometimes, and it doesn't look as nice as what we're accustomed to with the chrome covered pickups and stuff like that. And it definitely looks more out of place on a Strat style guitar. It's kind of passable. I think we're used to seeing them on Les Paul style guitars, but not so much on the electric ones, on the Strats. Cool Tune says, Tony, I have an NS on my Boss multi-effects. I wonder if it's like a noise gate. Thoughts? I'm not sure what the NS is on your multi-effects. I'm not really sure. It could be a noise gate. I don't have one. I don't know which multi-effects unit you're actually talking about for the Boss there, so I couldn't really help you. But I could pretty much bet my bottom dollar that if it's a multi-effects unit from Boss, there's probably a noise gate on it. Has anyone checked out the Gibson demo / mod shop guitars on Reverb? I did at a certain point. When I checked it out, there wasn't that many, but the prices were pretty hefty. I haven't been back since then. I kind of got sticker shock. I don't know if anybody else had an opportunity to check them out recently, but I haven't gone back. I'm scared sometimes to check out these reverb stores because the last thing I want is to get like my heart broken. You know, I like a lot of the vintage guitars and the look of the vintage guitars, but I look at the prices and I'm like, man, too expensive. Even though if you buy a good vintage guitar, it's pretty much an investment because the prices are going to keep going up. At one point, I was eyeing some vintage semi-hollow body Gibson guitars, but the prices were just too far out for me. So I let it drop, and I kind of hesitate to go back because I'm a little too gullible sometimes, and it isn't, if I find something that I really like, man, I just convince myself to eventually get it. I justify it in any way I can, which is not always a good thing. Gear Junkie says the room looks great, Tony. Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. I didn't do anything to it. It's actually messy, pretty messy right now. Luckily, a lot of the mess is hidden. You don't see it all. But I appreciate it. Maybe it has something to do with the lighting. I'm getting more of a glow happening from the screen at this time because my room is dark here. So Keith says, will a Vega Trem fit on a PRS? That's a great question. Typically, no. I say no. Maybe I'm saying no too quickly. It depends on which model PRS you're talking about. If you're talking about the one that has the kind of vintage style bridge, if I can call it that, the one with the screws instead of the posts, it probably can. But you have to check the spacing on the screws. It's best to contact the people over at Vega Trem first before you buy one, because those trems are pretty expensive. But if you measure the distance between the outermost screws, you can email them and they'll tell you whether or not they have a bar that fits that. I'm pretty sure they do. And the bars that are used on the Vega Trems have like a wide slot. So it's not like a tight round slot for the screws. It's a little bit wider so you can actually move it around. You have a little bit more play in it. So you probably would be able to put it in there. But you have to make sure that it fits, that the actual routing is the right size. I got lucky because it fit perfectly in my Kramer Beretta Special without doing any mods to it or anything. And it completely it changed the way that guitar felt and played. Yeah, the NS probably does stand for noise suppressor. So Music and Gear says, I just ordered from Sweetwater the Synergy, the Syn2 rack mount preamp module, dual module dock with the Synergy Friedman BE Deluxe 2-channel preamp modules and the Synergy Soldano slow 2-channel preamp modules. Dude, it seems to me like you're in business. I mean, what else could you want? You have like the cream of the crop, in terms of sounds there. The brown eye, the slow. What else could you want? Have you had an opportunity to actually put it through its paces? Does it sound as good as you expected it to? But you definitely are aiming for the right sounds. I'd love to have those. Very cool. Music and Gear saying he's replacing his Art SG X2000 Express. What are you going to replace it with? What are you looking at? And Cool Tunes wants to know if I use equalizer. Yeah, I do. I do, Cool Tunes. I try to keep an equalizer on my pedal board at all times. The reason why, specifically when you're using a pedal board and not necessarily going through a multi-effects, but the multi-effects EQ section is very, very critical and important as well. But when you're using a pedal board, I always have at least a 5-band EQ pedal on there at all times, especially if you're playing in a live scenario. You want to have that flexibility. An EQ pedal will be able to sculpt the sound and make you fit into the mix without necessarily having to crank up the volume. Because I feel like when you're cranking up the volume, if you need to be heard in a live scenario and you don't have an EQ pedal and you're cranking it up, you're basically starting a chain of events that is going to end badly. Because then everybody's going to, slowly bring their volume up, and then it's going to get muddy and cluttered and it won't sound good. You can avoid all that by using an EQ pedal and just dialing it in properly. So I usually have one on my pedal board all the time. I like the 5-band EQs as opposed to the bigger ones. I just prefer to have pedals on my board that take up less space. And I feel like the 5-band does enough for what I need. So Mike says, speaking of new guitars, I recently bought a few. I like when a sentence starts like that. Speaking of new guitars, I actually bought a few. Back up the truck, Charlie. You can put them right here. So you bought an IYV headless, or the ISHL 500, $160. An Earth headless guitar, GW2 for $300. An Ibanez RG IB21 for $450, and a Galari 6-string bass for $130. Looks like you have your bases covered with all those guitars. Very nice and budget friendly, but I think they're great guitars to be able to mod and be able to do a whole bunch of stuff with. So which one out of the bunch, Mike, do you find was the best buy? Sometimes we tend to think that the more expensive one is going to be the best. Our brain just is trained to think that way, but oftentimes is not necessarily the case. So which one do you feel is the top runner out of the bunch? Surfer By has his eye on a couple of guitars as well, but money's tight. I know how that is, man. Same for me. Prices are a wee bit high, and I have a good cross section of guitars. I feel like I'm in the same scenario as you. I've luckily toned down my drive to go out and find something new by working on guitars and modding them and upgrading them and making them better. And I think that's probably a good way to approach the scenario right now with the higher prices. Paul says, I got a JVFX transmission, a true clone of a $300 Hudson Electronics broadcast, $100 USD, a third of the price, new old stock parts. Its low gain is totally to die for. Bought and sold $2,000 to get this transparent. So Paul, where do you find these things? I know Paul has his own blog, right, where he talks about a lot of pedals and stuff. But where do you find these things? Do you just scour the internet endlessly till you find these deals? And how do you know that they're good? Obviously you do your research, you know your stuff, which is cool. It's very admirable for somebody who actually knows his stuff, And what's better than just knowing your stuff is you seem to be targeting things that are very affordable and go punch way above their price point in terms of quality and sound. So that's really good. And I appreciate the suggestions. I often just check out what you say and do my own research after the live shows and just check them out. And sometimes I gotta really bite my tongue so not to be buying every single pedal that you suggest. But I've been pretty good. I'm controlling my instincts. I'm controlling my my drive to go out and buy stuff sometimes, and I'm proud of myself. But sometimes it's a little bit stronger than I am, and I just have to, pull the trigger and buy something new. Joseph says, I'm happy with my Player Series Strat, but I really like the Eric Clapton Blackie Strat. Yeah, I like it. I like him too. I have one. I have a Blackie Strat that I converted to a Gilmore Strat, but it was originally a Blackie Strat. Tony, have you been researching the new Marshall JTM 45? Any thoughts at all compared to your studio vintage? I have been checking it out, Cool Tunes, and I'm what I've determined is from the sound clips that I've been listening to on YouTube, and I've been listening to quite a few of them. I think I made the right decision in going with the studio vintage. I like the sound of the JTM 45 a lot. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't mind having both of them so I can actually A/B them here in the room. But I find that the difference between the JTM 45 and the studio vintage is really that the JTM 45 seems to have a little bit more of a squishy feel to it. The sound seems to be a little bit more squishy, which is not bad. I like that in amps. But I find that the studio vintage cuts through a lot better and retains the clarity on all of the notes if you're strumming a chord, where the JTM 45 gets a little bit more mushy and sort of the notes kind of blend into each other a little bit more. The studio vintage really stands out a little bit more and has more dynamics, and you can really hear the individual strings better, in my opinion. So I'm not disappointed with the studio vintage, but I still would love to try out the JTM 45. The JTM 45s for me are some of the nicest amplifiers that exist, especially the really nice vintage ones, the real ones. I like to call them the real ones because they're not reissues like that one. But I have to say that the Dirty Shirley that I have has also kind of been designed based on a JTM 45, but it's more of a modern take on it. So, but it does, to me, scratch that itch. So I don't feel I'm missing out on the JTM 45 from Marshall as much because I do have the Dirty Shirley. If I didn't have the Dirty Shirley, I might consider it. I still would like to check it out though. And if I can get my hands on one, I definitely will do a side-by-side comparison. Music and Gear says the Synergy rack preamps are replacing the Art SG-X 2000, hoping the new rack will be as good as my Art SG 2000. Time to update. And Gene says, I read a review in Amazon on a guitar purchase. Was his first guitar purchase because he always wanted to learn and play but was afraid of entering a music store. He feared not knowing anything. So, okay, let me get this straight. So the guy bought a guitar on Amazon, didn't walk into a store because he didn't know anything about guitars and he was a little bit intimidated by all of that. All right. I would say that's not the right approach. That's what music stores are there for. I mean, the whole point of having a music store is to be able to go in, talk to a professional, which will hopefully give you good advice and guide you towards the right instrument for you. If you're going to go into buying a new guitar for the first time off of Amazon, not knowing what you need really, not knowing what you're getting really, and buying a guitar sight unseen, not even playing it, I don't think that's the right approach. Yeah, my niece heard exactly. How could a person be afraid of not knowing something they know nothing about? That's what the stores are for. Precisely, I don't know. Strange. It's strange that they decided to do something like that. But I guess, it takes all kinds of people to make up the world. And some people get controlled by their phobias and fears more than being logical about making a purchase. All right. Um, My Knees Hurt also says I picked up one of those Kramer Beretta specials for 150 this week. Amazing guitar for 150. I keep saying that. People don't believe me. But they are great guitars for 150. I mean, you can't even buy the parts for 150 bucks to build a guitar like that. Think about it. 150 bucks for the neck, the body, all of the electronics that go into it, the pickups, the tuners and everything. Yeah, you can upgrade. There might be stuff on there that maybe is not the best in the world, but it's a great starting point for 150 bucks all day long, So, the one I have two of them. I have one that's an older model and one that's a newer model. I definitely feel like the older models were better. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the older models may have been made in China. Don't quote me on that. I have to check. They either were made in China, now are being made in Indonesia, or vice versa. I don't remember. I gotta check. But they're definitely not the same. They're slightly different. Thank you, Cool Tunes. Thank you for reminding people to give us a thumbs up. I do appreciate that. We have 31 people still awake at after an hour and 10 minutes of talking. We're at 11:11 Angel time here. We'll keep it going for a little bit more. But I appreciate you guys hanging in there. Mark says, sorry, not Mark. Cushman says, Gorman, you still up? Marcel says, I'm 66 and a complete beginner and learning. I have a Daphne Blue Sawtooth ST that I modified and a Donner Thin Line Jazz that I love. I like the sound they make through my Fender GTX 100. So, Marcel, it's great to know that people are still, eager to learn and picking up a new hobby or learning how to play guitar, even at 66, which I don't feel is, old. You still have time to learn. You still have time to enjoy. I think it's great. And, you're picking up some instruments there that are not necessarily the most expensive, but will definitely be instruments that you can take advantage of for a while till you get better and maybe want to upgrade. And if you like the sounds that you're getting out of those instruments, that's fantastic. Some people feel like they automatically need to jump in the deep end. I'm learning how to play guitar. I just started playing guitar. I'm going to go out and buy a $4,000 Gibson, Is that the right approach? Some people think it is. Some people think buy the best guitar that you can afford right off the bat, and then you won't have to upgrade. But I don't feel that way. I feel like buying less expensive guitars gives you the opportunity to see what you need, see what you like, see what works for you, and then slowly get a little bit closer to your ultimate guitar. A lot of times, if you don't know and you don't kiss. You got to kiss a lot of frogs to find that prince. If you don't kiss all those frogs, you kind of don't really know what you need. And it really clarifies the idea of that, that guitar is really what you need. Some people don't know the difference, Some people don't know. They'll just buy a Strat because they like Eric Clapton, and Eric Clapton played a Strat, not knowing that maybe the Strat is not the right feel for them or not what they actually enjoy. Maybe they like something different. But they'll just automatically jump in because their idol plays that guitar. A lot of people do that. Paul says, I am day job retired and put a minimum of 6 hours a day, hours of research every day. I have well over 200 connections. I get e-going with the best independent makers who tip me off on makers they love. Great. And I'm happy to have you here as a resource, Paul. I really do appreciate it. And I encourage people to check out Paul's blog as well. If you're into buying pedals and you want to get a good deal and you want to buy something that's not going to break the bank, Paul definitely has brings some great tips to the table. And we appreciate you, Paul. Thank you for being here, man. So Music and Gear, he's heading off to bed. 4:30 a.m. comes quickly. I need to go to bed. I love the show, Tony. Night, guys. Thank you, Music and Gear. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you too. Get your sleep. Enjoy your, your evening. Get some nice dreams in there, and hopefully you'll be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed tomorrow. My niece says these Beretta specials have been on my radar for a few years. It really doesn't need any upgrades. It needs to be set up, not filed, etc. But it's a great guitar for the price. I agree, but I do think that it could be made even better. I'll tell you what I did to mine. All right, I definitely felt that the pickup that I had in the guitar wasn't a bad pickup, the stock pickup. But I put in a Jeff Beck JB, and it sounded much better. I also changed the bridge, and not a lot of people are going to be crazy enough to do this on a $150 guitar. But I put a Vega trem in the Kramer Beretta Special. Got a lot of flack for that, and I understand. It's a crazy thing to do. You're putting in a trem on a guitar that, the trem actually costs more than the guitar. But it changed that guitar completely, and it really now plays like a guitar with a Floyd almost, and that's what I was after. So upgrading the pickup and the bridge completely made that guitar a whole other guitar, and I love it, and I've been playing it non-stop. It's a great guitar. Marcel says it's scary to walk into a music store when you don't even know what you don't know. Don't even know how to strum. I know, Marcel. I know. I agree with you. When I bought my first guitar, that's exactly how I was. I didn't know how to play guitar. I remember going to the music store with a cousin of mine who was actually a bassist, because he was the only guy that I knew that actually knew how to play music and could give me some guidance, even though he didn't really play guitar. And I brought him along with me, and we ended up buying my first guitar. I was so excited to be able to go and get my first guitar. I still remember like it was yesterday, and I ended up buying an Ibanez Roadstar 2, which was black, completely black, looked like a Strat. I really wanted a Strat, but I couldn't afford one. And I ended up getting that guitar, which I enjoyed for many, many years. It's actually, I haven't been able to find the exact model anywhere used. I ended up selling that guitar, and I kind of regret it. But the closest guitar that I've seen to that model, believe it or not, was the guitar that Marty was playing on Back to the Future. Not the Gibson that he played on stage, but the earlier, if you watch the beginning of the movie when he's playing, at the very beginning, he's playing a black Ibanez. It's not exactly the same model, but it's pretty darn close to the one I had. And I didn't buy it because of Marty. As a matter of fact, I may have bought it before Marty. The old guitarist has a question. He says, Tony, do you feel like the popularity of overseas guitars has driven up the price on American guitars, and in turn driven up the price of overseas guitars? Are we all paying too much? I think we are paying too much. I don't think it's really a question of popularity. I think it's really a question of the whole thing that happened with the pandemic. I think it just drove up prices because, parts and different components were really difficult to get. I think that drove up the prices, and once people started seeing that people were still buying guitars at those prices, they kept it going, and they haven't really come down yet. And now, with things changing with the economy a little bit, and inflation really getting to the point where people are struggling, I think we're going to start seeing that effect slow down and hopefully reverse. Hopefully. I'm not guaranteeing it. I'm just saying hopefully. My niece says, I watched your Beretta Special video a few times. Last year and last night. Very cool, man. Very cool. I'm glad you did watch it. So Gene is reminding me that we have a poll. I did. I don't think I mentioned it this earlier on today. I probably forgot to mention it, but there is a poll question. I usually like to proceed my live streams with a poll question to get the heartbeat of the people that are tuning into my channel and seeing where, what people are doing. So the poll question today is about changing your guitar strings. And so let me go to the poll question here and see what the results are on that. Usually the poll question is in my community tab on my Addicted to Gear channel on YouTube. So the question that I asked in the poll was, how often do you change the strings on your guitar? And 179 people answered the poll, and here is the result. So can we have a drum roll, please? I'll start off like I usually do with the most popular answer and work my way backwards. So the answers, the possible answers were every week, every 2 weeks, once a month, only when I break a string, or only when I start to see rust on them. So the most popular answer was actually the last one, only when I start to see rust on them, which I'm actually very surprised to hear. I wouldn't expect that to be true. I hope you're not doing that, and I hope you guys are just, you just chose that one to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek with the question, with the poll. If you're waiting for your guitar strings to rust, then you're in trouble, because they'll often get dead way before they start to rust. I've seen terrible strings on guitars. I've been out looking for new guitars or checking out guitars on the used market, and I look at the strings and I'm like, man, these strings have never been changed, which is bad, very bad. I really try to change my strings when they really start sounding like rubber bands, and sometimes that'll happen sooner than others, depending on which guitar you have it on, how often you play it, and so on and so forth. So that is the most popular answer in the poll. The second most popular answer to me is kind of obvious, and that's what I usually do, is only when I break a string, which is not actually true. I won't necessarily change my strings only when I break a string. I'll also change my strings when I do a fret level, or if I install new pickups on a guitar. I'll usually at that point take out the strings that are on the guitar and put a brand new set, because I want to try out the pickups with a brand new set of strings, so I get the full impact on what the pickups sound like. You don't want to test a new pickup configuration with dead strings on it. You're not going to really enjoy it. But 29% of you said I only will change my strings when I break one. At 22%, people, 22% of the respondents said once a month. And I don't necessarily put a time frame on it. I don't necessarily have like a best before date. I don't, it's not like a timing belt where you're going to change your strings before they actually need to be changed. If they don't sound good, or if you break a string, definitely you want to change them. But if they're still sounding good, why change them every month? If you don't need to, save yourself some money. 2% of you said every 2 weeks. If you're changing your strings every 2 weeks, you're probably doing a heck of a lot of practicing, and good for you. That's great. But that could get very expensive, especially if you have a lot of guitars. I have way too many guitars. It would cost me a fortune, so I don't change my strings that often. Not at all, not even close. And then 1% of you said every week, which is, again, quite often. But if you're playing a lot and you want to keep your guitar in tip-top condition, especially if you're playing live gigs in front of an audience, you definitely don't want to risk breaking a string. So it makes sense to change your strings as often as possible. Shane agrees with me, says in the comments on the poll question, he says the biggest disadvantage of owning several guitars is changing all those damn strings. Change 3 guitars this weekend and still have 2 to go. I agree with that. I agree with Shane on that 100%. I won't necessarily do just go through a whole bunch of guitars and change them all at once. I'll usually spread it out where it needs to be. And Barba Papa says, with a collection of almost 40 guitars, I only change the strings on a few that I play. The rest are in cases and I check them when I have time. 40 sets is strings for good ones. Costs too much to change them on a regular basis. And I agree with that. Many of you have said, we'll change them when it sounds flat or won't intonate. Paul says I change strings when they no longer can intonate. Yeah, and that makes sense. If they're just stretching out, beyond, what's normal, they're going to have a hard time being put in tune and being intonated. And you definitely want to get rid of them at that point. The Gold Guitarist says, Tony, years ago, you made a video about a solid state amps versus tube amps. You had recently bought a solid state to keep at your practice space, and you said you'd reveal which solid state amp it was. Yeah, that was a long time ago, man. That was a PV Bandit red stripe that I bought, and it was actually a pretty good amp. I still think that the PV Bandits, the earlier red stripe versions, were great amps. They sounded really good. They're not exactly the same as a tube amp, but they definitely worked well and they had a great tone. And that was the amp that I used at that point. I don't even remember making that video, or barely remember making that video. That must have been probably almost 10 years ago at least. But I'm glad to see that somebody's looking at my previous older videos. Guitar for Life says, anything wrong with me sticking to one guitar only for a few years? Indonesian PRS SE. I don't seem to be affected by the gas syndrome. Well, first of all, congratulations if you're not. That's great, because then you can concentrate on practicing as opposed to shopping for guitars. There's nothing wrong with playing one guitar. Nothing wrong at all. As long as you don't feel like you're being held back in any way. And as far as I know, the Indonesian PRS SEs are great guitars. They're very well made guitars, and they should keep you going for quite a while. Plus, those Indonesian PRS guitars can easily be upgraded with better pickups and go on even further before you feel like you're going to need to change any of those guitars. Cool Tune says, I'm a cork sniffer with my acoustic and change them when the tone changes slightly. I'm more finicky with acoustic guitars too, as a matter of fact. I don't like the rubber band sounding strings on acoustic guitars. I like them to be bright, spanky, if you know what I mean. So I will change them on acoustic guitars more often. EF says, I feel like some guitars only sound really good when they have new strings, but others sound good even with old or worn strings. That is true. I noticed that as well. I have a white Telecaster there. And for whatever reason, I don't know what the difference is. It could be the fact that I have locking tuners on that guitar. Maybe that could be a factor. But I find like that guitar, the strings get rubber bandy sounding way sooner than like this guitar. And I have a feeling it's because these are wrapped around the post, where the other guitar has string through locking tuners. I think the locking tuners tend to stretch the string at the cutoff point, and for whatever reason make it sound a little bit rubber bandy sounding. I would have to test that theory on some other guitars. Yeah, the PV Bandit is loud and heavy. It's a pretty big amplifier, but yeah, it's a good amplifier. I like it. Mr. Man is here. He says, hello, Tony and chat. Thank you for coming and joining us, Mr. Man. Nice to see you here, man. Nice to see you here, man. I'm glad you asked me, the old guitarist. Yeah, I'm here to answer questions, man. So I'm happy you brought that up. Keeps me on my toes. Makes me remember what I did in the past. Paul says, I used the classic made for decades D'Addario, but get the same strings branded Godin for about half the price. Is that what they're doing? D'Addario is rebranding for Godin? Okay, that's cool. Good to know. You know, I'm not surprised. There's only a few major guitar string manufacturers, and they're probably making brands for most of the other companies out there. So, not surprised at all. All right, very cool. Thank you guys for all that useful information. I'm really happy to hear that. I'm always learning stuff from you guys, so I do appreciate it. Marcel, thank you for the super sticker. It did work this time. I see it here. Thank you for that. If you want an Addicted to Gear sticker, Marcel, you know what to do. Just contact me with your mailing information, and I'll send one out to you. And I appreciate you supporting the channel. If you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you'll know that my videos are usually alternate between guitar reviews, pedal demos, discussion on amplifiers, or projects that I'm building, that type of thing. The processes involved and the tricks that I've learned. And I like to share my tips and tricks with you guys as well. The last video I posted on my channel was a video outlining my next build, which is a Telecaster Custom that I'm working on. For those of you interested, you can go back on my videos and check out my channel and take a look at that video. I have another video ready to come out probably tomorrow. I'm going to see if I can get that out tomorrow, and it's a continuation of that process, and hopefully you'll find the content to be of value and interesting, especially if you're trying to build your own guitar at some point. I tend to get a lot of feedback from people that are doing the process, and they tell me that they like the videos because it does walk them through it. So I'm going to give you information on that build as I get that done. If you give me a show of hands, if you can tell me how many people here today have actually tried to build their own guitar at some point, tried to tackle that. I'm just curious if that's, if it's just me and most people don't even want to go there or don't have the skills to do that. But I feel like it's a great way of learning how to set up guitars and getting to learn about what makes a good guitar good, little nuances that make a big difference in the sound. So if you've tried to build your own guitar, or if you're thinking about building your own guitar, just tell me if you've done it or if you're thinking about doing it. The guitar that I'm putting together, actually, I just got a set of pickups for it. These pickups are made by Mr. Glynn. It's a pickup manufacturer, a builder, way over in Australia. And he sent me these really cool pickups to put into that build. I want to try them and also do a video review of those pickups. If you haven't already checked out his pickups, you can do so. Mr. Glynn's pickups, which is Glynn is spelled G-L-Y-N-S, mrglynspickups.com. He's got some really nice pickups there, and I'm itching to try them. They look really good, but you can't tell how good a pickup sounds by looking at it, but it looks like it's quality. The pickups that I'm putting into that guitar, I'll just see if I can pop those up on my screen for you guys here real quick. if ever you're interested in checking them out for yourself. Let me see if I can share my screen. I think I can. All right, here we go. The pickups I'm putting into the Telecaster build are these pickups right here. They're called the Cruel Mistress. Right here. I'll just click on it. They're a hot Telecaster set, and they're using Alnico 5 magnets. The bridge is a little bit hotter than normal at 10.05 kilo ohms. The neck is about 7.25, and they really look well made. They have, I don't know if I can zoom in on these. You can't really see them all that well here. Let me just, you can't really tell from this picture, but the set I have has beveled magnets on it now. These ones might be an earlier model without the beveled magnets. But I'll be showing you guys what they can do and making you hear them. And hopefully you'll like them and I'll like them. I'm looking forward to it. It's not a kit build, Gene. It's actually parts that I've acquired. Body of that guitar build is from Guitar Fetish. The neck of that build is from Guitar Anatomy. The pickups, as I mentioned, are from Mr. Glynn's Pickups. Let me see. I'm going to be upgrading the pots as well and the switch on that. I'm actually going to be trying out this. I don't know if you guys tried it or know about this. These are, I typically go for Strat switches, but I'm going to open this up for you guys so you can see it for yourself. I wanted to actually try this because I never tried this particular model before. It's a three-way switch, but it's not a typical Telecaster style one. Let me just pull it out here without getting my fingers pinched on the staples. So it's a three-way. It's kind of like a combination of the overseas models and a more modern version. You can see there's a PC board in the back. It's heavy. It's got a nice solid metal casing on it, and it's got a very satisfying click to it. They call it a heavy duty switch. I don't know. I've never tried these before, but I wanted to put it in that build and see how well it works. They're not extremely expensive. It's about 15 bucks or so, but I'm just wondering if they're going to last longer. And you can see the way the wires are going to be attached. They're all attached here at the bottom where they get soldered onto the pads. A little bit different than I'm accustomed to, but I'm willing to give it a shot. I'll try anything once to see how it works, and I'll give you some feedback. It also comes with the 3 different color, little knobs on there and the screws. So I'll check it out and I'll report back to you guys and let you know if it's worth the money or not. My niece says I got my Bandit when I got my first guitar back in '89 or so. Used, but it's in good condition. I paid 220 bucks, I think. Yeah, those amps tend to last a long time. They don't really break down that much. Peavey was making some good stuff back then, and they've kind of held on to their value as well. You don't get them for like 50 bucks. They're still floating around out there, and people are still asking good money for them. Ken says he got his feet wet with a pickguard swap on a Squier Strat. It's a starting point, you know. Just take small steps, get used to it, get into your comfort zone, and go from there. Cooltoon says, I noticed the bridge pickup height on the bass side is closer than the treble end. Wonder if the previous owner set it up that way, or what was the height on tours? Well, if the height on the bass side is slightly closer, you're definitely going to get more bass end out of it. Typically, it's the other way around. Typically, the bass side is a little bit lower, more space between the pickup and the string, and the treble side's a little closer. But maybe he was trying to get a specific sound out of his guitar, and that worked for him. You never know. I've seen a lot of weird stuff with guitars in terms of setups. Mr. Man said threaded SS, M6OD, M4 ID inserts for the bolt-on necks and just made a carbon fiber neck plate. So I think you mean inserts for the bolt-on necks and just made a carbon fiber neck plate. That's pretty cool. I never tried carbon fiber neck plates. I'm wondering if they work well or if they crack. I know carbon fiber is usually pretty good in terms of flexion, but I'm not sure how well they hold up against impact. Alex says, I've done it a couple of times, not good at paint though. Painting a guitar is challenging, Alex. It's not easy, man. I've done the painting thing a few times, and yeah, it's hit or miss. You can easily mess up a paint job, So if you're a beginner and you want to put together your guitars, I would say go with a pre-painted body. Save yourself a lot of hassle. Surferby says, I started building because I couldn't afford a Fender custom shop and I thought I could at least do as well as a Nash. Yeah, and that's precisely my feeling right now. It's like, I want to have that custom shop look, feel, playability, but I don't want to pay $5,000-$6,000, So I'm going to build my own custom shop and see how well I can, how close I can get it. If it's great, fantastic, I'm going to love it and keep playing it. If it's not great, I'll part it out and build another guitar with some parts, from that build as well. So it's never a loss. And it's not a kit build, Gene. It's like I mentioned, it's different parts that I accumulated, parts that I have in my collection already from other things that I want to use. But I've got the body and the neck from different sources, and I'm putting it together. So it's not a kit per se. Marcel says, I'd love to build one, but I gave all my tools and wood to my son, and he lives far from me in Point Claire, and I'm in Langay without a car. You don't need that many tools, Marcel. If you really are just putting together a parts caster, what do you need? You need a screwdriver, you need maybe some pliers, some nippers, a soldering iron, something like that. Not a big deal. A little trip down to Canadian Tire and a few bucks, and you'll have all the tools you need. Paul says the PV secret is they use a Class AB power amp. Only New Orange amps still do. Everyone else uses cheap Class D. Yeah, that's true. That is true. All right. Tony, my switch in my Edwards Gold Top works fine, but it seems flimsy. How's yours? If you mean, some people interpret, how can I put this? Switches easy to being flimsy. Like there's not necessarily a more, when you switch, you don't necessarily have to force it. It switches pretty easily, right? But I don't necessarily think that's flimsy. It's just an easy switch. Like some switches, when you switch them, you actually feel like you have to put a bit of pressure on them. So it makes it sound a little bit more, feel a little bit more hefty, but it's not necessarily flimsy in my particular case. I don't usually worry about switches until they break. When they break, I'll change them. If they are flimsy and they break, I'll change them. But most of the time, I can get quite a lot of use out of them before I have to change anything. Most of the time, they'll end up being intermittent, like they'll get corroded, as opposed to actually just failing outright. A little deoxit sprayed in there and clears it right out. Jim says the bad part about PV is that the parts availability will dry up. I recently paid $500 to have a Deuce VT recapped. Wow, that seems pretty steep, man. Are you sure you just didn't get clipped by whoever's doing the work? That's a lot. My knees hurt says doing the finish is the main reason I would put a guitar together. I grew up in a wood shop, so I have some experience finishing wood. Well, if you have that kind of experience, then you can definitely go well beyond what you can do with just a parts caster, right? You can actually start, routing your body shape and putting together nice exotic woods and all that kind of stuff. You can get some really killer guitars that way. I'm not that advanced. I won't go to the point of actually shaping the guitar body. I'll usually just use off-the-shelf parts and make my way with that. Mr. Man says, you have a blue or purple Telecaster? Yeah, I do. I actually have one of each. I have a blue one and a purple one. I do. Paul says you can buy the old PVs from a family that sells granddad's old amps when he passes. In Canada, it's not too hard to find one. I even got the year I wanted the Metallica used to record. Yeah, you can get them all day long. PVs are not scarce. They're not scarce. You can find them. You just have to look, but they're there. I did thank Marcel for the super chat, Cool Twins. Thanks for reminding me to thank Marcel, but I did thank him. Rex10 says, what's up? Glad to find you on. Well, thank you for being here, Rex. Yeah, we're here chit-chatting. I've been chit-chatting for an hour and 46 minutes. We're going to start wrapping it up because I think people are starting to slowly fall off here. We still have 27 people here, which is fantastic, considering it's so late. I'll answer some more questions for sure. Marcel says, I had $15,000 worth of tools and really nice figured woods and veneers. Yeah, that's the key with, building your own guitars. Having access to really cool veneers makes all of the difference. You can really make a so-so humdrum guitar really, really nice with some proper veneer work. Cool Tunes, I understand what you mean. Yeah, there's no convincing click. It's kind of like a wishy-washy kind of click on the switch, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a cheap switch. It just has a different feel to it, so I wouldn't worry about it. Gene's giving us an update. Sierra Hall National Bluegrass Champion and Molly Tuttle on stage now at Crossroads Guitar Festival. Thank you for the update, dude. And my niece says, I recently made a 2x12 cabinet, Celestian Greenback and V30. Modeled it of the Pete Thorne cab. Used wine red Tolex and some cool skull fabric for the grill cloth. You save yourself a ton of money. You got the right two speakers in there. 2x12 is a nice combo. You get to mix speakers. And, if you buy a ready-made cabinet, you're going to spend a lot of money. You can make it your own. I've built a cabinet underneath the Egnator here. I have my cabinet. You can't really see it. It's down there. 1x12, but I enjoy it. And I use the Egnator 1x12 and the other one underneath. Also, I can use them at the same time and just mix and match speakers. It works so well, and I think the job I did on it came out fine. Really, to me, it looks like, something you bought in a store. I don't think anybody would question it. Mr. Man says, Tony, I was wondering what is the name of the colors I'll be painting one also. Go back in my videos, and I do talk about the process of building that guitar, and I do mention, I'm pretty sure I mentioned the colors, where I got the paints from as well, and you'll have the exact name of the color in that video. I believe it was royal blue, royal purple, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't want to lead you down the wrong path. It's been a while now. You can check my videos. It's there. Thank you, Marcel. I appreciate the fact that you find me interesting. Yeah, very cool. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. I need to get my beauty sleep. Look at me. I'm like disheveled. Look at my hair. It's like I'm wrecked. I appreciate you guys tuning in and really spending a good 2 hours of your time this late in the evening with me. I appreciate you guys tuning in because I don't usually get an opportunity to talk to all you guys that are here today. And I encourage you guys that if you can make it, and join in on the fun on Sunday mornings as well, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please do. We want to try and get as many people in on these live chats as possible. I do appreciate all of the comments, all of your questions, and I actually didn't even get an opportunity to go through the breakdown. I had a bunch of stuff I wanted to actually talk about today and go through all of that with you, but no big deal. I'm gonna go through that stuff next Sunday in the morning. If you guys want to catch that, you can definitely participate in the fun. So guys, thank you so much. You made my evening really pleasing. I love being able to connect with you guys. Thank you for the super chats, the thumbs up, and please spread the word. If you know other people that are addicted to gear and love guitars and love this type of chat, please invite them to tune in on the channel, watch the videos, and most of all, join us on the live chats on the Sundays so that we can get together and get to know each other much better. So have a great week, you guys. Please be careful out there. Enjoy yourself. Play your instruments. Practice as much as possible. And if you have anything you want to talk about that comes to mind during the week, take a little note of it and get it ready for next Sunday, and we can share it with the group, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. All right, have a great night, guys, and see you all next week. Thank you for tuning in.